the city guard reprimanded us for taking the law into our own hands, which is kind of outside of Valk's normal moral code. But I think the excitement of smashing evil in the face and stopping criminal activity overwhelmed his sensibilities. So I'm pretty sure my focus was to go to the city guard and kind of ask them, for forgiveness as kind of a sign of penance too, and to try to see if there's anything I can maybe he can offer his services to them. So that was my goal as of last time.
Okay. So yeah, if you're being a newcomer to the city, you kind of look for the nearest guard outpost probably to go accomplish this, and you find some guys there, and they're kind of hanging out. Let me find their picture here. The file navigation is awesome. There we go. So you see these guys.
Okay.
So, exiting out of my menus here so I can see again. See what appears to be probably a halfling, a dwarf, and either a human or a half elf, just kind of hanging around their post. They're keeping a fairly watchful eye, but they don't seem to be like overbearing. They're not like looking down on everyone. Um, and as you approach, they sort of look at you, and the tallest one there, he sort of nods for a minute. He's like, "Oi."
Greetings. You seem to be members of the City Watch.
The little halfling. That's right. What's your business here, soldier?
If it please you, I'd like to offer my services to you.
Okay. When you say this, he says, "Well, we are a bit busy today. We've had already in the middle of the night. We had a large explosion go off over near Troll Skull Alley. Now, your Valk would probably remember Troll Skull Alley is in the same district, same area of Waterdeep that the house that Volo had offered the party previously. It's actually a pretty small little district in one of the sections nearby.
Mysterious activity over there, huh? Hmm. If
Yeah,
it
there's.
please you, oh, go ahead, Zach.
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say they tell you that there was a loud explosion there, like sometime early in the morning, like 1, 2 in the morning, something like that. And that it seems like several bystanders may have been killed. So if
Oh,
perhaps some one of the city watch that's in that area needs assistance.
then what I'd like to do is make haste. I can't. I don't think I'm that familiar with Waterdeep, so I'll just ask them for quick directions and trot along to the source of the explosion.
Yep, it's actually not far from where you are now. It's only a few blocks away. Um,
Perfect.
so you arrive on scene, and you page here. They have stuff kind of scattered across this book. So you arrive on scene, and you see several onlookers kind of standing around. People are kind of have like come out of their houses and are looking at this devastated front of this house, and you're fairly certain that this house is the one that Volo was describing, giving to the party, and it now
Mhm.
stands charred on the front of it. A large hole is actually blasted through where the front door used to be. Part of the overhang is kind of burned off and is falling down. Um, there's several people standing around. You see, an, let's see, you see a tall figure wearing kind of nice robes, um, sort of dolled up She's a female. She's done up to make herself like in the style of the high lords and ladies of Waterdeep with like this fancy eye makeup and stuff. She got her hair she got her hair did, you know. Um,
Hmm.
you also you see a youngish, maybe like 12, 13-year old boy. And, we'll say a halfling boy. So he's that weird, awkward, like kind of halfling where he's like looks like a gangly teenager, but he's also the height of like a short, gangly teenager. So he's like extra halfling awkward, we'll say. Um, you see the two of them are standing kind of nearby to where you are, and other than that, it's mostly shopkeepers, people just stepping outside, kind of pointing at things. You do see what appears to be one City Watch official, kind of standing off to one side, waiting.
Okay,
He's
I'm
wearing the
definitely gonna. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say he's wearing the cloaks of one of the like assistant black robes. So he's like somewhere's in between like a City Watch and like the actual investigators, the black robes that come through.
Hmm.
But he
Okay,
has a
that's
vest
the
to
guy
his
I'm going
ear.
to approach first. As I'm, taking notice of these people in the crowd, I'm probably going to try to stay like make a like straight line right towards that guy.
Okay. So as you approach him, you kind of look down at the scene, and on the charred remnants of like what is essentially a courtyard or a street, like of an alley. Like this is not when I say alley, it's not like a 4 foot wide alley. It's like a street named Troll Skull Alley.
Hmm.
So it's probably a good 15 feet wide, and there are several little like alcoves and things that go off the back side of this alley away from the main street. Um,
Hmm.
and you notice that there are, in fact, around 11 charred remains. And as you walk past, make a perception check for me.
Okay. Perception. Natural 20.
Okay. So you look down, and you notice that one of the one of the deceased, the charred victims here, has a on part of its arm that wasn't burned has a black winged snake, which you've seen before. It's the symbol of the Black Network.
Mm.
And that's near him is a dead gnome, who is partially charred on one side, and on the other side of him, you can kind of see that his boots and his cloak are just covered in like filth, like muck. Um, looks very similar to what you experienced when you fell in the swamp or in this or when you were wading through the sewers, like almost like he had been in the sewers recently.
Hmm.
Um, so you're crossing straight over to this guy. You're gonna go right over to the city watch guy that's kind of looking around.
Yeah, that's curious though. So we have the crime network guy, and then there's a gnome next to him, half burned, half muddy.
Yep. And
Okay.
they're like nobody has been here yet. The main force of the city watch has not shown up on scene. It looks like this guy probably was the first city watchman on scene, and he's kind of like he looks pretty nervous even as he sees you walk up to him. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oi there, careful, watch your step. It's official city business here."
Okay. Um, in my observations of the house being burned, does it look like a house fire, or does it look like there's a big crater out of it and it's been like, charred around the edges there?
It looks like a fireball went off on the outside of this house. Everything is blown into the house, kind of. Any of the debris that you see from the doorway and stuff, it looks
Okay.
like somebody set a fireball off at that doorway almost.
Someone shot something at it and made it look like, obviously burned it bad, but we also have a known criminal, a, an oddity with that half muddy. Like, why was he muddy if the streets are clean? And yeah, all right. So I'm going to go up to the investigator and introduce myself formally as Warden Valk and state my religious quest and let him know that I'm a friend of the law. And if there's something I can do, that he needs to let me know.
Okay. He looks and he says, "Well, Captain Blastwind will be here shortly. He should be arriving with reinforcements any minute. But yes, for the time being, just if you're trying to help, just keep some of the onlookers back a bit. Perhaps see if any of them saw anything and report back to us. That would be a huge help." Says.
I am going to do exactly that. So I'm going to approach. I think I'll start. Actually, I'm going to start with the most suspicious looking of the bunch. There was a teenage boy. Was the teenage boy the halfling, or were
Yeah,
there two
the
different
goofy,
teenagers?
awkward halfling kid. Yep.
There's a goofy, awkward halfling kid. There was a noble woman, and then there's just random, regular ass bystanders. Right? Like no one else kind of jumps out at me. Correct?
Yeah, everybody's kind of like they all seem to either be coming in or out of their homes. Kind of,
Yeah.
they don't seem out of place, you know.
All right. So I'm gonna choose to approach the gangly little halfling dude because uh, I would not think that a noblewoman would, in theory, because they have no benefit committing any crime. Really, they already have everything they need. If anything, the law favors them. So I'm going to approach that gangly halfling kid, and I'm going to ask him, what's all this about? Did you see anything unusual? And what's your name? This and that, the third. Just kind of do a little mild interrogation,
Okay.
but as friendly as I can.
All right. Make me a charisma persuasion check.
Okay. So is that? Do I roll both? I'm sorry about that. Or do I just roll?
We'll just say persuasion. Actually, we'll just do persuasion
Sorry.
because
Got you.
it's not gonna be a difficult.
15. Not bad.
Okay.
This
Um.
kid's not easily
Yeah.
won
So
over.
he says, "Name." I'm trying to think of any accent other than Scottish because for some reason I've got that everybody in
you,
Scottish now.
you do drop you
Yeah.
drop into Cockney a lot, but we
Yeah.
love you for
Um.
it.
He says, "Well, right after the explosion, I ducked behind a rain barrel over here, and then, it startled me. And so then, he says, I looked around. I didn't really see anything other than there was something moving up on the roof over there. So, of course, I hid." He says, "And as whatever it was ran across, I heard a plop. And I looked around after it was gone, and I found this in the rain barrel." And he holds up what appears to be a necklace with a number of pearls on it.
Mm,
And it's a pretty nice looking necklace. It does appear to be missing one of the beads off from it.
interesting. So it's a necklace with pearls and a missing bead, and this kid found it. And this was presumably there was something moving on top of the house, then the explosion, then he found the necklace. Right? Is
Yep.
that the order of things? Huh.
Yeah, that's right, sir. I really need to practice other accents.
um, I've been trying to practice Yorkshire myself, but anyways, um, all right. So I'm going to take. I'm going to ask kindly if he wouldn't mind handing that piece over because this may be evidence, and I'd like to give this to the city investigator.
Okay. Yeah, you do that. And he's like, "Oh, you say that the boy over there found it? All right, well, thank you then." The noblewoman has kind of ingratiated, or she's dissipated herself from the scene at this point. She's no longer in your sight.
Okay.
At this point, Barnabas Blastwind arrives on scene with six more city watchmen. Barnabas is He's a rather short fellow, blonde. He's got kind of curly blonde hair. He wears dark glasses, and he's got a kind of what do they call? Is it like a French tickler mustache? The one that comes out and has like the curly Q on it.
We'll call it that.
With just well, I know a French tickler's something else too, but
Yeah, it certainly is.
he's got the big blonde beard, and he's all dressed in these kind of lavender robes with a large gold medallion, like disco style medallion on. He carries several pouches and has a long crooked staff that he leans on. He seems like not old, but not like he seems like maybe he carries more years than his appearance gives away.
So, so if I'm perceiving this right, this guy is probably like a career cop that the job has treated him nicely as far as finance, but as far as physical toll, it hasn't been too kind.
He's getting too old for this shit. Is what you? Yeah,
It's Danny Glover.
yep,
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
exactly it.
All
Nah,
right. So he's all right. Well, if he's going to be the authority, I'm going to want to approach him first. And
okay. He looks at you and he says, "You're the one that found the evidence, eh?" After he's talked to the other city guard for a moment.
I salute him excitedly because I realize he's a person of authority. And again, go through the usual introductory pomp.
He says, "Well, is it what's your name again? Valk," he said correctly. All right. Well, after a brief survey of our scene here, I can tell you a few things just by looking at it. Uh, this gnome here, he's known to us. His name is Derekar. He's known to be an informant for several wealthy nobles in town. He's come to us with information regarding happenings with both Xanathar's guild and the
Hmm.
Zentarum. It says it seems that maybe his enemies finally caught up to him.
I
He squats down and he says, "Seems someone here got away," and he points to a series of footprints that lead away from the scene, where two sets of the footprints lead directly to another two dead humans, which he pulls up their sleeves and it reveals the mark of the Zentarum to be on both of those humans. The same mark as is on the this guy here, the one that was
Yep.
right in front of you.
Yep.
Um, and the third set of footprints leads up the alley and into kind of a little turn-off spot, and just ends from where you guys are standing. You don't see anything past the corner. And he says
Mm.
the it seems like the gnome was being pursued here. And I don't know. Perhaps one of these Zentarum got trigger happy with a fireball or something and got some of their own men. What do you think?
It is curious with this necklace that we've found. Would the Zentrum wear such ornamentation?
Well, there's nothing to stop them, I suppose. The, the strange thing is, Zentrum are not known for attacking in broad daylight like this. They're more prone to kidnappings, and I hear that a group recently rescued Rainier Neverwinter, the Lord's son, uh, just the other day.
Indeed, that was our group, and that is why I'm in your service, sir.
Oh, that was you. Oh, very good. Well, perhaps you have a future with the City Watch.
Certainly, I'd like to think so.
He at this point, a single Griffin cavalry rider of the Watch kind of makes his way down, and he's now stationed in this area. And you can tell that it's like the scene where some shit's gone down. The cops show up in kind of like the small group at first. Everybody's like spreading out, surveying the situation. Now it's like all the red tape guys are coming in, like the coroner. Like there's like lawyers showing up. There's like ambulance chasers trying to figure out if there's a case here.
Yeah.
It's getting crowded.
Got you. We
And
got some Jacoby and Myers motherfuckers.
yeah.
All right. Finkelstein, Levine, Gittleson, and Tettenbaum.
So
All right. So, uh, just for clarity, when they said that the gnome was like he was an informant, is he working for the nobles or is he working to inform the City Watch of the comings and goings of the nobles? I didn't understand that bit.
Um, we will say he is known to the City Watch to be someone who he's kind of like a socialite that goes back and forth between various nobles, sort of like good example would be somebody like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, like that type of a thing where he's like sort of trying to play all parties against each other and everybody sort of knows it, but he's a good guy to have on your side, I suppose. Um,
Okay.
he does spy work in certain circles,
Got it.
but he is known to
Okay.
be an enemy of evil groups like the Zentarum or really criminal, evil kind of nasty groups. He doesn't like those
Hmm.
guys.
So the Zentarim, there's several of them dead here. Then there's this gnome. I'm going to mention to Blastwind about seeing the noblewoman here, which did seem a bit out of place, just as a precaution. Um, Let him know that there was a noblewoman here, that she did seem to stand out in the crowd. But again, I thought nothing harmful of her, being that she is of the nobles and has no reason to break the law.
Okay. Um, so you mention it to him, and he kind of snaps his fingers, and a few other the watch come over, and he gives your description of the woman to them, and they go jogging off. And maybe like 20 minutes later, they come back and they've got this woman kind of escorted with them, and she seems a little upset by it, but she looks and sees Blastwind and then looks at you, and she's kind of got a puzzled look on her face. And
Mm-hmm.
she's he says, "Madam, introduce yourself." And she says, "My name is Jezrin Hornraven."
Okay. Noblewoman Hornraven, I have a question.
And she
I
says,
saw you earlier here at this scene. I'm wondering if you can give us some more information about what happened here. We're hoping to try to unravel this mystery, and I'm in service of the City Watch, so please understand I mean you no inconvenience. This is a religious calling for me.
and she kind of looks at you up and down.
Oh dear.
Um, make a charisma religion check. So go ahead and add
Charisma.
both modifiers together this time.
Okay, so religion is a 0 for some reason for my guy, but my charisma is a +2, so I'll just roll a d20 and see where it takes us. Ugh, that's a fiver. Ugh,
Okay, so
yuck.
she kind of looks at you and she goes, "Oh, you're another one of those cult members." Kind of rolls her eyes. I'm personally an atheist. I don't believe in any of this God's nonsense. And people are like, when she says that, they kind of like, it's not normal to be an atheist when there's like physical gods in your realm, you know? That's like a big statement, you know?
Valk bites his tongue. He will not speak against the noble nor break the law, but this is maybe one of the few times he's genuinely infuriated.
Blasphemon looks and he goes, "All right, we're not here to debate philosophy, folks. What can you tell us about what happened here earlier? Were you present when the explosion happened?" And she says, "I was just around the corner. I just wanted to go home. I already didn't want to be in this dreadful area." And you gotta keep in mind, you guys are in the on the edge of the dock ward, which is literally like the poorest district of Waterdeep. Pretty much, it's like just above being a complete slum. It's a livable slum, we'll say. And she says, "I when the explosion went off, I looked up and I saw something on the roofs. It was running across, and I didn't I didn't put two and two together, and I just like I said, I wanted to be gone." She says, "Looked like a man but smaller. Not like a not like a boy, but like a small man. Maybe like a marionette with no strings."
So what we're looking for is a gangly looking halfling.
He's still playing in the on the other side of the street right now. He's just kind of hanging out and like looking all around, like ooh, like looking at the dead bodies in the street.
But what she's describing, does it seem like she's describing someone that looks like the boy?
No, it seems more like she says like for there we go. See if I can get my hands on screen. Um, she says that if this is your which direction am I going here?
Hmm.
Um, if that's the halfling right there,
Yes.
she would put it at about that size to this thing. So it's like half the size of a halfling, like maybe a foot and a half tall, but like a tiny man, just proportioned like a man, ran like a man.
But small. And then after he jumped off the roof, the explosion occurred. Puzzling, puzzling. Um, at this point, I'm going to take my leave of that scene. I'm not going to go stray too far because I'm probably going to want to come back and ask Blastwind what my next steps are. But I'd like to investigate the actual house further if I could, wherever I can, to try to understand what's happened. And while I'm up there, if there's any stragglers or anyone looking around, I'm going to ask them to clear out while we investigate.
Okay. Yeah, there's nobody else really hanging around at this point. All like the shopkeepers and stuff have sort of abandoned. They've abandoned the area and gone back to doing whatever they were doing. It kind of
Okay.
leads you to believe, as someone who's not from Waterdeep, that maybe there's more explosions in Waterdeep than you would first expect, just by looking at the city. It is a city
Real.
filled with mages and things, so like this might not be that out of the ordinary for some of these citizens to like go outside and be like, "What the hell was that?" Oh well, and go back inside.
Okay.
Um, but
I mean, eventually I want to track down those footprints, but for now I'm kind of curious if I can pick up something more about the house itself.
as of uh, as of going up to the house itself, like the people that have started showing up as far as like the city watch and stuff, they're starting to gather around the house and they see you approach, and one of the guards kind of like starts to make a motion like he's gonna stop you, and then one of the other ones is like, no, he's okay, he's with Blastwind, and they don't stop you from going inside the house.
Perfect. I'm going to head in and I'm just going to see if I can gather some more information about the nature of was there anyone else in the house? Are there any possessions that sort of stand out? Any bits of further evidence, perhaps the missing bead from that necklace?
Okay.
I know that's going to be a tough thing to look for, but if it's in a unique looking necklace, it might be you know could be a clue. Who knows?
So at this point, you're standing in the front door of this kind of rundown three-story manor.
Yeah.
It looks like it's been kind of just left to deteriorate for maybe 10, 15 years. But it's a well-built structure, so it's just mostly surface kind of gunk and stuff. It's not falling apart. It just has missing pieces here and there.
So
Um,
he didn't give us a total like fixer upper, but it could have been cared for a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. It's run down to say the least. And you can tell it used to be probably an inn or like a bed and breakfast type of place. It's got some nice balconies on the second and third floors, and a very welcoming common room is right in front of you, minus the 10-foot hole in the wall. Um,
Naturally.
there is a few other city watchmen in there right now, but you don't see anybody that is actually looks like a resident of this place. It looks like it hasn't been lived in for some time. Um,
So
you do, however, when you step your foot across the doorway, you see a, a cup on the bar just kind of slide down like somebody was taking a heavy mug and just slid it down the bar. But there's nobody at the bar, and none of the city guard or city watch seem to notice.
I'm going to investigate that. I walk right over to the mug. That mug just slid down on its own, huh?
Yeah, it looked literally like somebody took it and slid it across the top of the bar.
Mm, yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
Okay. So as you approach, a floorboard kind of squeaks, and you look down, and right when you look down, several bottles fall off from the shelf. These dusty bottles, like just wine bottles, shatter on the floor behind the bar.
Okay. Give me a second. It's bright enough in there that I can look around, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a
All
big
right.
10-foot hole with some sunlight coming in through it.
So I noticed that these bottles crash out of nowhere. The mug slid out of nowhere. Huh. All right, I got to ask a game question to you. If I were to cast command, but I couldn't see the target, I can't really cast the spell, can I?
If it
If I were
says line of sight or anything like, if it says anything about must be able to see your target.
to a creature you can see within range.
Yeah,
Shit.
so
Nah. Wait a minute. I'm going to cast Zone of Truth.
okay.
And that is 60-foot radius. I'm sorry, 15-foot radius. I'm going to cast it from myself. And the first question I'm going to ask as I sit in this 15-foot radius of truthfulness is there anyone there?
You hear a ghostly yes from behind the bar.
My wife is laughing at me as I play this, by the way. So if you hear laughter in the background, don't be offended. She's laughing at my expense. um, okay.
I know we're nerds. It's fine.
I know. All right. So, and what is your name?
Lift.
Lith.
Yep.
What is your business here?
This was my bar many years ago. At this point, a beer pours into a mug, and then a second one pours into a mug, and one sits down in front of you, and one sits kind of across the bar from where you're standing, like he's offering you a beer.
I approach the bar, but I ask him for water instead. Sorry. Sticking with that bit.
He another cup comes up, and it's just filled with this murky, like just something that looks like it's been sitting in a sink for a couple of years. Um, because the place is covered in just dust and gross shit, and like he didn't clean any of the dust or anything out when he poured the beers. At this point, like he kind of lifts the beer up and the water goes over towards you, and it does one of these tink together, and the beer goes back, but it just pours onto the floor. It doesn't actually go anywhere.
I take the glass of water and I drink it, but I drink it in front of my lips and spill it on the floor, but I make it look like I'm trying to drink it and like happily like, oh, it's delicious. But clearly I'm faking in the front.
And he just says, "Cheers."
This is the best. Um, I asked Lith, some strange events occurred here last night. What do you know of them?
He says, "A nimble right set off a fireball. I don't know why. I don't think I made any nimble rights mad."
Hmm. Did anything else curious happen here in the past day?
He says, "Yes, a gnome has been coming in and out of here for the last few days. He's been carrying a sack with him sometimes."
Is that sack still here in the house?
"Yes."
Can you let me know where that is?
Attic, he says.
Thank you, Lith.
You're
Another question
welcome.
before I take my leave, friend. Some of the men we found outside were allied with the Zentarim. Have they been coming in and out of the house as well?
No sense. We have wards. And at this point, when he says we have wards, you see a glow come from the nearest doorway. And above
Mm-hmm.
that doorway, and looking through it, you can actually see at the next nearest doorway, above each door in the house, there are several magical shapes, these glyphs. And they're generally used for protection spells. Like it prevents a specific object or entity from being able to be present within the radius of that glyph,
Hmm.
like maybe evil creatures or werewolves or just something specific. But each glyph works differently. It's like a separate version of that spell.
Hmm. Okay. So good information there. Okie doke. My next goal is. Oh, by the way, what did he call that thing? A nimble
A
white,
nimble right.
nimble right.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to remember that one.
If you want to
Nimble.
roll a history check, we can see what you know about it because you might know something about these things. You do exist in the world.
Sure. Yeah, me personally, I'm. But Valk might know more than his player. All right, let's go. History, intelligence 0, and that's an 8. Get all the bad rolls out now.
Okay, so yeah, you're like that's a thing, I guess.
Yeah, it
Right?
certainly
That's
exists.
nimble
You
right. That
know
sounds like a
the.
thing that's probably somewheres in the world. Yeah.
I guess that no, I like the roles kind of match me as a person. Like I don't know what a nimble right is either. Awesome. So all right, I'm gonna head up to the attic and see if I can locate that sack that my new pal Lith told me about.
Okay. Um, as you enter the attic, you you look around and it's more of the same. It's just dust. And this is not like a nice, like finished attic. This is like that little 2 foot crawl space that like mom keeps the Christmas decorations in, that sort of an area. Um,
Mhm.
but
You're
up there,
describing the basement.
yeah. I wish, yeah, I wish I wasn't describing my daughter's closet. But yep. So as you look around, you kind of like there's just a few rats up there that are sort of skittering around in the corners and stuff, and you find this sack, and in the
Mhm.
sack is a large rock about the size of a bowling ball.
Interesting.
Maybe a few little carvings on it, but nothing too intricate. Maybe just some squiggly lines on it or something.
Okay. Any papers or anything, or just the big rock?
Nope, just a big rock.
All right. Well, I'm going to carry that down to the first floor and say, since I think actually, how long does that last? Because I wonder if I could. I don't really like using Zone of Truth because I like to trust people. But how long does this last? Oh, 10 minutes. It's probably done by now. Um, all right. So with that, if Lith is still there, even if well, of course he's there, I'm going to say thank you for your help, Lith. Pleasure meeting you, and head out of the burned up house with the big old rock of mystery.
Okay. Lift just says bye.
All right. So once I leave the house, I'm going to go back to Blastwind,
Okay.
and I'm going to say using my thanks to divine providence, I was able to locate this in the house. And I can also say that what we're looking for is a nimble right. And I say that just like that because I have no idea what that is.
He says, well, yes, I suppose that would fit the description that what's her face gave us, Jezrin. And he says a small creature. That's a nimble right is small. Hmm. Usually they're made for assisting wizards and things in their labs. They're not like not something that would attack unless they were programmed to do so. That's
Hmm.
interesting. He says, let me contact my boss, my superior. He probably doesn't call him a boss, but it's a local dialect. He says, let me
Screw it.
contact my superior in the city watch, and I'll get a cross section of wizards that use nimble rights in the city. Usually they're registered with the guilds. So
Interesting.
he
Forgive
sends.
me for asking Blastwind, Lord Blastwind, but this object, do we know what this could be? They
Hmm.
say that the gnome came in with this and apparently had frequented the house.
He says he's looking this stone over now. He's very interested in this. So I go back to my first page here. This is the problem with playing them out of the books is you have to memorize your page numbers or you forget where stuff is.
Trust me,
Um,
you're millions of miles beyond where I am. I'm literally dipping my toes into this shit like for years of not.
he uh, he kind of
So
looks over
thanks
and
for
he looks at the first city guard or city watchman that you saw with the partial like indication of black robes. And he sort of
yes.
snaps his fingers like this and beckons him over. The guy kind of
Okay.
shuffles over and he's like, "What do you make of this?" And he looks and he's like, "Is that could that be it?" He says, "I think it very well might be." He says, "I think that," and he turns and looks at you and says, "I think you may have just found the Stone of Galore."
Stone of galore.
Hmm?
All in a day's work.
He says, "Well, citizen, I'll if you're seriously interested in the watch, this is some impressive footwork you've done. So I'll be sure to give you a good recommendation. But for now, I should return this to the Black Staff, and it should be examined thoroughly. This could serve this could serve the Lords of Waterdeep well, if it is what I think it is. But it's best you not worry yourself with that right now."
I even hearing that I've benefited the people in power and the law. I am again like I'm back to being like giddy, like that restrained. Like maybe I'm smiling. That's the look I'm going
You're
for right now.
you're thinking about smiling right now. You're like,
Yeah, it's I'm like 3 steps away from smiling, which is as close as I get to smiling. So I'm feeling like swelled with pride at this point.
yeah.
Now at this point though, we know we're looking for a nimble right, or at least its master. We have 3 dead Zentarim and a dead gnome. Um,
And there was also in that same area, just
yes,
for canon's sake, there was
yeah.
also a pair of dead halflings that looked like they were playing flutes. They were kind of like all crisped up like that. Um,
Ooh.
and there was also a elderly woman that looked like she had gotten burned up too, just like in
Mm.
common clothing and just probably caught in the blast.
Since I didn't examine them before, I'd just like to quickly examine them now for
Okay.
any oddities.
Um, Yeah, the elderly woman doesn't have anything on her, and at this point, Blastwind has already gone through the gnome and the Zentarim's pockets, and
Mhm.
he's discovered a bag of gems, and he's put those into his pocket for safekeeping. He's also on the Zentarim. He's discovered several weapons that are marked with the Zentarim logo, that flying kind of snake dagger thing that you'll see more of.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
And so yeah, it's been a few hours at this point. Like this is kind of all like this milling about. Like it's sort of starting to slow down. People are starting to leave. They're taking the bodies away, and Blastwind looks at you and he says, "Well, they'll be taking the bodies to the temple of. I know this.
I promise I read through the Waterdeep thing, but of course my mind is like a sieve, so
I'm
I
just
can't
as bad
remember
with these
everything.
books. These books, it's like, oh man. He says the bodies will be taken to the Temple of Gon. That's the closest place that they do funerary rites. I imagine the Centarum will just be buried ceremoniously in the cemetery ward.
Yeah, I nod. So at this point, though, the investigation is still ongoing. Now, this was Volo's house. Volo would still be at the was it
Yeah,
yawning
he's
portal,
the yawning
perhaps.
portal with the. That's where he was last night, anyways.
So I'm going to go to Blaster and I'm going to say, sir, while it does seem that the investigation is settling down a bit, and there's still more footwork to do. I know the owner of this house. He's a man named Volo. The last time I saw him was at the Yawning Portal. The party of assistants that I had before, my fellow adventurers, who I'm leading on a divine quest, are encountered him there, and he offered us this place to stay. Certainly, I have no interest, but it's curious that he's involved with this gnome fellow.
Thank you. I'll be sure to question Volo. I know the man of whom you speak. He's he's a bit of an arrogant fellow at times, but he's an all right man, I suppose.
Hmm.
Thank you. Actually, I could head over there right now. So it seems like the remaining watchmen have this well under control. The clerics are on their way to remove the bodies, and I've already examined them. So let us make haste, he says, and kind of starts jogging in that direction for his version of jogging, just tapping along with a stick.
Yeah, so I'm going to join Blastwind, sort of tagging along like an excited puppy dog, because I'm going to solve crimes. So
All right. When you get to the yawning portal, Durnan is back at his post at the bar. It seems like he's awake every hour of the day. He's like never sleeping. He is the
got it.
literal video game bartender that is just always there, the omnipresent NPC. Um,
Somehow.
yeah. He says, "Oi, funny looking fella came in, dressed all in weird clothing, and left this for you." And he hands you a note, and the note just says, uh, sit rep, RE Far East. And the note says,
I was actually going to check in with him, but yeah.
it's written in a really kind of broken common English, but it says something along the lines that the situation in the East is worsening. Even in just the last 48 hours, it seems like many towns have fallen to Malakani's forces, and Malakani's forces are pushing west and north. The elves of Grimwood are still holding fast, but all towns between Grimwood and the desert have fallen, so they're cut off.
Hmm. That's dreadful news. I mean, we have this investigation to conduct, um, but it's clear that I'm directed towards this Lich Lord. This is my divine passage. I must defeat him. But anyhow,
Blastwind kind of looks over
because
his shoulder at the note and he says, "What's that all about?"
I explained to him, the story of how I became involved with the quest to destroy the Lich Lord.
Give him the breakdown. Got it.
Broken
So
it all down, everything.
he says, "Well, that's serious indeed. I tell you what, when I get back to the station, I'll be sure to report this to my commanding officer, and we'll make sure it makes its way up to the lords. They'll consider it in their chamber, and if need be, will you be in town? Well, you won't be leaving anytime soon, will you?"
My fellow adventurers seem to have wandered off. I may
Durnan
need.
looks over and he goes, "They went down the hole." Points to the hole in the floor, the big well.
Oh, I go to Blaster and I say, my friends are down there.
Ah, he says, "Adventuring folk. I get it."
But yes, if you can pass on this to the lords, it would be most helpful. If the lords and the archmages that seem to dwell here in Waterdeep have an idea of how to hasten us back across the oceans, it would help us greatly in our quest to defeat this great evil.
Certainly, he says, "and what is best for all of the realms is certainly best for Waterdeep. And certainly best for you and your friends. So at that point, I would say I gotta jump off because it's now 7 o'clock, so I gotta get the other guys in here. So I don't need to like
Sure.
leave, but I gotta. I'm gonna stop the
No,
recording
no, no,
now.
no, no. Do you want